Welcome. Welcome everyone to session 9, I believe, of Creation and Its Causes with Ward Parks. We're going to be doing a focused reading for 1 hour and make that one recording. And then after that, we'll have another hour that will also be recorded with discussion about the two talks that we're going to try to get through today. So let me turn it over to Ward Parks. And thank you, Ward.
Okay, since we're doing reading, we had thought it might be good just to start with a pure reading of the 3 proofs from the last time, just to bring that back to mind. It would only take 2-3 minutes. Then we'll go on to the lecture for today. Who should we, do you have a reader, Cassandra?
Yeah, let's have Jim Wilson.
Okay, let me blow it up there. Okay, so this is from last time.
Hang on a second, Jim. I forgot I have to let you unmute.
We thought it would be good to read this because this is such a significant summary of major points that have been brought up until now. Okay.
Yesterday, it was demonstrated that at the outset, energy and Akash are indeed within God, but latently so. I will prove this again, for if you grasp this point completely, you will understand further explanations easily. Today, I will explain this in 3 different ways. A, first proof, the ocean analogy. First, imagine that in the beginning, the Darya, the ocean, lies quiet without any movement. Now, suppose that suddenly Darya begins to move. What comes out? What issues from this occurrence, this moving? 2 things. 1, the movement itself, and 2, the pokal, which is the empty space between waves. And again, from what source did this movement and pokal originate? From the Darya, the ocean itself. The movement and the Akash were latent, present inherently within the ocean in its original state, and hence they were able to manifest when the moving of the Darya began. Thus, we have proved that movement and Akash are in the Darya from the beginning and always. B, the second proof, under the aspect of knowledge. Our second proof is algebraic as follows: God equals knowledge. Now, when this God is unconscious, it follows that knowledge must be ignorant. That is, knowledge knows not, and therefore, within knowledge, ignorance is. So, when God is conscious, by extension, in that state from the very outset, knowledge knows that I know not. Why so? Because, as we have seen, ignorance is inherent within knowledge, and ignorance means I know not. Now, this knowing that we are speaking of, this knowing that it does not know, where does it come from? From knowledge, capital K. So within this knowledge, both knowing and not knowing exist, but latently. Does not know means ignorance. Within knowledge, then, knowing as well as ignorance both abide. C, the third proof, God and the cosmos. Now, consider the following equivalences. God equal knowledge equal Darya, ocean. Energy equals knowing equals movement. Akash equals ignorance equals emptiness, Pokal. Table 1, the three proofs. You have the spheres, real, subtle, and gross. You have the third proof, under the aspect of God and the cosmos. The real equals God, the subtle is energy, and gross is Akash. Under the second proof, under the aspect of knowledge, the real is knowledge, the subtle is knowing, and the gross is ignorance. And the first proof, the ocean analogy, the real is Daria, the ocean. The subtle is movement, and the gross is emptiness.
So I think this is a really important table, bringing out a lot of the correlations of these ideological systems that he's been developing until now.
Wow. We proved above A that Daria contains both movement and emptiness or hollowness. Then again, we proved in B that in knowledge, both knowing and ignorance inhere. By the same logic, we now conclude and take as proven that in God are energy and Akash. Tomorrow we will go on to prove that from this same Akash, which is equivalent to ignorance and emptiness, the gross world is created, and that from energy, which equates with knowing and movement, arises the subtle world. From this, it can be inferred that only God is true. Why? Because when the thing from which the world is created is empty and hollow, what would the world created out of it be? How could the world be otherwise? And then
You can just read the English, Jim.
yes, give the two worlds to the enemy, but the friend is enough for me.
And the entire
that-
couplet, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This
No
is
one- yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I'll
Should I
just
read
read
it?
the English. No, go ahead and read it. Yeah.
Okay. This is a translation of the second line from the first couplet of a ghazal by Hawati Miraga. The complete couplet reads such and such. This translates, no one fits in my mind but the friend. Give the two worlds to the enemy, for the friend is enough for me. The two worlds alluded to are the gross or physical world and the subtle or invisible world. Allah transcends both. Hawati himself was a Persian poet born in the city of Maraga in 1274-75, passing away there in 1338. His divan contains about 8,000 verses in various literary genres.
Okay.
So Carl Ernst was the key to identifying this. By the way, the translation from Persian was done by Fareshte, who's been in a lot of our sessions.
Nice.
Okay. So now we go on to new material. By the way, just to remind everybody, in this work as an infinite intelligence, Baba tended to use the model of the gross and the subtle spheres. And he was not alluding to a mental sphere. So the subtle sphere is the entire domain from the beginning of the first plane up to the end of the sixth. In Islam, this would be the Jahane Baki and the Jahane Fani. The Jahane Fani is the gross sphere, and Jahane Baki would be the subtle. So when you hear subtle, remember he's talking about the entire inner invisible world, not subtle prior to the mental sphere. He doesn't really bring up the mental sphere yet.
Okay, let's have Melissa read this. At least get us started.
Yesterday, we saw that knowledge contains both knowing and not knowing, or ignorance. The proof of this was given as proof B on page 140. Now let us take one of the individual drops of Daria, or ocean, to elucidate the theory of evolution. We know that every drop is part and parcel of Daria. So when we talk of the drop, it should be understood that we are talking of Daria also, since the one automatically follows from the other. What is hereafter proved about the drop, then, is proved for the Daria as well. To prepare the ground for a clearer understanding of further explanations that we will come to soon, let us review some of the main equivalent terms and their opposites, as below. Opposite God and illusion terms. Principal God terms, opposite terms, and illusion terms are in each vertical line. First, knowledge versus ignorance. Paramatma, universe. The infinite, the most finite. Nirakar, the formless, and Sakar, the formful. Daria, ocean, and form or hollow space. The proof shall I read that?
Yeah, sure.
The proof undertakes to show that knowing and not knowing, or ignorance, exist latently within knowledge from the very beginning. Knowing and ignorance, as described in that talk, correspond to Pran and Akash.
And let's see. Maybe why don't I just say something about this figure, because and then we can read the key to it. But this is a figure that more or less shows the divine theme narrative. You guys know the divine theme narrative, right? The journey of the soul from the very beginning, the origination in the whim of God, as God Speaks puts it, through evolution, reincarnation, involution, to the realization of God. So down here at the beginning, you have God unconscious, and here's the Om point, out of which it all projects. And these three horizontal lines are the evolutionary series: atom, stone, metal, vegetable, animal, and human. And this bottom line here seems to designate the form. The middle line seems to designate the knowing. And the third line designates the Atma, right? So this is the same trinity that we saw in that table. Atma is the real, knowing is the subtle, and form is the gross. And it arrives at the Jeev, this human being, human form, the infinitely conscious Jeev, I mean the fully conscious Jeev. And now this part is the involutionary path, the reverse direction for reversing sanskaras. All the sanskaras that were accrued, that's what those loops mean, in involution have to be undone. The real path, the Ulat Marg. Ulat is a word that readers of infinite intelligence would have encountered, the reverse path. And at the seventh plane, the God conscious Majub knows knowledge only, has no knowledge of creation. And here, Shiv, knowledge with ignorance. Sadhguru knows knowledge and ignorance both. So this is the first representation we've had of the entire journey of the divine theme, the drops evolution from ignorance to knowledge. Okay, so why don't we read the key and keep on going? This is a very, I think it's a very pretty diagram myself. So this is, by the way, the source diagrams are put in the key, one of the source diagrams for each.
Key to figure 12. The most complex and developed of all the diagrams until this point, figure 12 represents the entirety of the divine theme, from the drop soul's origination in the God unconscious state, represented by the semicircle at the bottom, through the kingdoms of evolution, in the movement from right to left, in B, C, and D, to reincarnation in the human form, number 7. Through the path of involution, ascending left to right between D and E, to the realization of God at the Om point, top right. Indeed, this figure even differentiates within the broader class of Shivatmas between the God conscious but creation unconscious Majzub state in E and the God conscious and creation conscious Sadguru state in F. The 3 parallel lines in mid-diagram show the evolutionary movement in different aspects. B representing the evolution of form, C, the evolution of knowing or Chaitanya, and D, the unchangingness of the soul or Atma. This distinction between the form, the knowing, and the Atma corresponds broadly to the 3 levels of the gross, the subtle, and the real, as explained in the 9th of December lecture, and as represented in Table 1. It is puzzling that figure 12, following its sources, identifies God unconscious, A, with the universe, since the evolution of form and consciousness takes A as its point of origin. Presumably, this unconscious universe is in its latency as the primordial nothing.
Okay, so here's that diagram again. So we can come back to this later if you would like. Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's something at the
No,
bottom of the page also.
Right, right. The text resumes. Yeah.
So now to begin, with reference to Table 2, out of Paramatma 2, or Darya 5, at the moment of the first movement, 1 drop, which is Atma, emerges. We have already established that in Paramatma 2, which is identical with knowledge 1, both knowing and ignorance are contained, as shown under the column Second Proof of Table 1 in yesterday's talk, page 141. That is to say, within Atma, which is part and parcel of the Paramatma, both knowing and the most finite form, C and B in figure 12, inhere. In the beginning, when Darya moved, this comprising the very first movement and space, or hollowness, began to manifest, since they were from the first already latent within Darya. When in the very beginning Atma awakens, then what is created? Knowing and finite form, for Atma is ultimately the same as Paramatma, which is infinite. And thus Atma acquires finite form, 8 and 10. Why? Because just as space or form, 10, is the corresponding opposite term to Darya, the most finite pairs off, the most finite 8 pairs off as the opposite term to the infinite. So when Atma begins to move, this space, 10, as said, takes the most finite form.
So
Thank you,
he's
Rose.
constantly referring to this diagram, this table, of course.
Mhm.
So you almost need a book to be able to leaf back and forth to see what he's talking about.
So do you want to set up this next?
Yeah. Okay, so this is an editorial comment about this, which we're going to read in a minute.
Go ahead, Sam.
Into the source manuscript between explanations 10 CC about 10, 10, 12, 27, page 1, and explanation originate 10, 12, 27, page 2, has been interleafed a small tab of paper with text in Meher Baba's own handwriting, as has been reproduced on the facing page. How this piece of paper came to be inserted into this manuscript, we do not know. This paragraph of Baba's does exhibit a clear relationship with the text of the lecture, particularly the second paragraph following table 2. And after that, some of the idea content of the paragraph before it. Probably the Mandali member who kept and preserved this paper in Baba's handwriting understood the connection with this lecture and housed it in this manuscript for this reason.
So here it is. Now it's transcribed below. Where shall we read from?
Was there a footnote on the last page there? Did we miss it?
Let's see.
Oh, no, we
can
already
skip-
did that.
we can
Yeah,
skip
we'll
it,
get that
yeah.
document.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we start from the transcription?
Okay. Yeah, that'd probably be better. Mhm.
Literally transcribed, the text reads thus: in Atma, there is knowing and, I assume, finite form,
Mhm.
space, and when it awakes, these two things become manifested. When manifested, the space becomes most finite. Why? Space is opposite to Darya, so finite is equal to infinite opposite. Atma is infinite, so naturally the first form is most finite.
So here's that. Why don't we read it here also, just for the pleasure of reading Baba's handwriting? Can you read that, Sam? Or
Yeah, I think so. I note that it is finite in here.
yeah.
Okay.
That he misspelled certain words, and that's one of them.
Okay. Did you want me to read it the way it reads or finite?
Yeah, you read finite. Yeah.
Okay. In Atma, there is knowing and parens finite form, end parens, space, and when it awakes, these two things become manifested. When manifested, the space becomes most finite. Why? Space is opposite to Darya. So finite is equal to infinite
Yeah. And so equal and opposite are
and
paired
opposite,
with each
equal
other.
and
Yeah.
opposite, infinite.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Hmm.
Atma is infinite, so naturally the first form is most finite.
Okay. So that's an interesting little item. as part of this. Okay.
So to recapitulate, what is manifested in the beginning? Infinite Atma contains knowing and most finite form, 8 and 10, within itself. And in the beginning, these two, knowing and finite form, which is space, manifest. Now, it was proven yesterday that knowledge knows ignorance. This implies that Atma, which in fact is Paramatma, which in turn equates with knowledge, knows ignorance. And this ignorance is equivalent to the universe, as suggested in figure 12. In short, Atma, in the beginning, knows the universe, or ignorance, through the most finite form, which is the electron, a form so finite as to be imperceptible. So let us proceed. Since this form, through which Atma sees the universe, is indeed most finite, in effect, Atma sees and experiences the most finite form of the universe. At this juncture, Sri gave the beautiful simile of a person viewing some object, such as a lamp, through a minuscule hole in a piece of cardboard. And he explained that the size of the thing or things seen would accord with the size of the hole through which one is looking. If the hole is minute, things seen likewise appear to be minute, while if the hole is large, things seem large, and so forth. Sri went on. The footnote is, this simile is essentially the same as the analogy of the eye and the lion that Meher Baba gave some 18 months earlier, as recorded in Infinite Intelligence, pages 183 to 85.
Yeah, I'd suggest there's a nice figure illustrating that. So it makes this analogy vivid.
To come to the point, the Atma now experiences or sees, owing to the first movement, even though it does so only through a minute hole. It did not see or experience previously when it lay quiescent. That seeing or experiencing commenced with the first movement. Now, as Atma experiences the most finite form, the sanskaras created are correspondingly most finite, and the arising of sanskaras commences immediately upon the Atma's assumption of form. And when the Atma drops that first most finite form, the sanskaras persist. And these sanskaras in due course provided with another form, a little greater and less minute than the previous form was, owing to the accumulation of sanskaras that occurred throughout the term of existence of the previous form. In this second and subsequent form, the Atma experiences the universe more expansively and forms a greater idea of it, its angle of vision having been widened through the broader opening that the bigger form affords. In this way, the process of evolution goes on and on for age after age, the Atma assuming innumerable forms, one after another, as it passes through the various kingdoms of stone, metal, vegetable, and animal, until eventually it arrives at the human form. All of this is depicted in figure 12.
Thank you, Sam. Did you want to show figure 12 real quick, Walter?
Yeah, I was thinking that might be nice. That's figure 12.
Oh, right.
So here down from this is the evolution of form 1 to 7 with those 3 lines. Human form and reincarnation is here. And here is involution through the 6 planes to God realization as Majub and perfect master. So here he's just been reviewing the evolutionary process.
Okay, Elizabeth, do you want to pick up next?
Sure.
Let's see.
Okay.
No, where did we get to? Which page?
We got to
Yeah.
thus we find.
At the end of the
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah. That's right.
Page 140, there you go.
Oh, it wasn't the top of the page?
Yeah, no, the bottom. Thus we
Okay,
find.
okay. Thus we find that the degree of knowing, which is to say experience, increases step by step in accordance with the advance and progression of the forms. This knowing or experience we call Chaitanya, and Chaitanya becomes Jeev. In human form, this Jeev knows and experiences the universe fully and completely. And the footnote says, Chaitanya was an important term and concept in infinite intelligence. See, for example, Mayor Baba's discussion on pages 22 through 28 and 32 through 34. See also the editor's explanation on pages 479 through 80, an article entitled On Chaitanya attributed to Mayor Baba and published in the Mayhem Message 2, number 8, August 1930, pages 2 to 3, distinguishes between Chaitanya and consciousness. This passage was reproduced in the supplement to Infinite Intelligence, pages 608 through 9. So this
that's for any.
experience
Yeah.
we call Chaitanya, and Chaitanya becomes Jeev. In the human form, this Jeev knows and experiences the universe fully and completely.
Okay. Is that the end?
No.
Oh.
Now, did you want to say something, Ward?
Just Chaitanya is going to be coming up a bit here, and infinite intelligence is a major source on that topic.
Okay, I'll read a little more slowly per request.
Thank you.
Now, it must always be borne in mind that the Atma itself, throughout these different forms and experiences, remains the same, whether the form in which it finds itself is atom, stone, metal, vegetable, animal, or human. When the Atma knows the universe fully in the human form, as we have already noted, it need not assume any other form beyond this. In other words, there is no further form for the Atma henceforth on its journey. What all this means is that knowing or experience in the human form has achieved its full and complete development. For in the human form, the infinite Atma gained infinite knowing of ignorance, which is the universe. So we can offer the following definitions. The Atma with infinite knowledge of ignorance is Jeev. The Atma with infinite knowledge of knowledge is Shiv. Remember again that Atma throughout remains as it always was. You chaps have infinite knowledge of the universe, which is to say of ignorance, are in the state of G, while this chap, which I assume is referring to Baba,
Right.
who has infinite knowledge of knowledge, is Sheev.
So that's the end of that lecture.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was very cool.
Mhm.
Can I reread that paragraph?
Elizabeth, please just follow our direction, thanks. Okay, we have another one to read yet, and then we'll come back for any discussion or reading.
And this next one, just to scroll through it, it has another piece of paper in Baba's handwriting. There are no figures in this particular talk.
So Jim, can you read a little more from this one? Oh, where are you? I'm sorry. I couldn't find you.
Jim is muted
I'm
still.
trying again. I'm muted here. Hang on. What happened? I lost my powers.
Hmm.
There we go. Okay, Jim, sorry. Thank you.
Mute. Okay. Continuing from the, I can't read that.
Preceding.
Preceding sessions discourse, Shri first of all recapitulated the portion of the explanation proven yesterday as under. In the beginning, Shri said, infinite Atma assumes the most finite form of the electron. Through that form, it experiences the most finite portion of the universe, which is ignorance, proven. To make this idea more concrete, Shri reviewed the simile given the day before of peering at a lamp through a piece of cardboard with holes of different sizes, starting with the most minute and increasing in size from there. This process culminates in an open viewing of the lamp with the cardboard previously held before the eye, now removed altogether. Shri went on to explain the meaning of the analogy as follows. While experiencing the universe in its most finite form, Atma acquires the most finite sanskaras of this experience. Subsequently, the Atma drops the form, but the sanskaras remain, and these sanskaras give to the Atma another form. Mind you, Atma itself remains the same, but the forms change, and accordingly the knowing, which is to say the experience, increases, just as when looking at the lamp through the minute hole, the vision, what the eye sees, is accordingly minute, while through a bigger hole, a bigger field of vision, an expanded sight presents itself, and so on it goes. Okay. This progressing and what we are reviewing here is evolutionary theory.
Oops.
Did you lose it? I lost
Yeah,
it.
Yep.
we lost your,
Whiteout,
Okay, one section. What happened?
illumination.
Okay, do you see it again?
yeah, but
Yes.
it's not in
Very
the
small.
usual form.
Which are,
Yeah, so
Oh,
we're seeing the
oh, I see.
the controls from the
I
PowerPoint.
see. No, we
Yeah.
don't want that. Let me try it again. Okay, I better stop sharing and try it again. Okay. Right.
Now, let's have
There
Marianne
we go.
Lewis read. Maybe let me find you, Marianne. Ask you to unmute.
Okay. Thus progressing, and what we are reviewing here is evolutionary theory. At length, the Atma in human form gains full knowledge of the universe, or ignorance. That is, the Atma in human form completely knows ignorance. To repeat, knowledge in the human form knows knowing and ignorance fully. In
Now
this
let's see
state,
if that note is,
there's a
okay,
asterisk.
probably the note may be worth reading.
Okay. Of course, Meher Baba's account of evolution gives priority to the evolution of consciousness as the driver of the evolution of form, as contrasted with Darwinian evolution, which concerns itself with the evolution of form only, which is driven by natural selection. In this state, Atma can be called Jiv. When Atma knows knowledge, it becomes Shiv. Having reviewed the substance of the previous day's discourse, Shri now continued. But for Atma to know knowledge, the attainment of the human form is a precondition. Why? Because Atma is infinite. To know the infinite, knowing too must be infinite. And knowing is infinite only in human form, as proven earlier. Therefore, Atma must have achieved the human form if it is to know knowledge. All of this is illustrated in Figure 12, page 144. Atma in human form has infinite knowledge of ignorance. Now, to know this infinite knowledge, infinite knowing must remain, but ignorance must vanish. But the sanskaras that Atma acquired in its previous forms force it, poor thing, to know ignorance. So for ignorance to vanish, the sanskaras must vanish too. But sanskaras cannot be made to vanish easily, since they are created through the very acts of seeing, hearing, and so forth, as we have explained before. To illustrate the problem, Shri gave the simile of a man who, in a dream, imagines that he is enjoying a pleasant drive in a motor car, when in reality, nothing of the kind is taking place. Then how to free him from this pleasant dream delusion? This can be accomplished only through the sudden appearance of a tiger who terrifies the dreaming man and jolts him back to wakefulness. Shri continued. So then, what is the remedy to the problem of ignorance and sanskaras as we have been describing it? The sanskaras must be reversed, which means that the man, the Atma in human form, having descended into ignorance, must now travel in the reverse, ulat, direction from ignorance to God, who is knowledge. And for the accomplishment of that purpose, he must get hold of a Sadguru. And what does the Sadguru do? He enables the creation of those reverse sanskaras necessary for the progress from D to E in figure 12. The Sadhguru does this by putting one on the reverse path, which produces reverse sanskaras. And these reverse sanskaras counterbalance the gross sanskaras by and by, finally leading one to God. Good dreams make you sleep comfortably. To awaken you, a tiger must come. And when his work is accomplished, the tiger too disappears, and you become fully awake. Such then is the process. That is, reverse sanskaras are created, and by this means, the previous sanskaras are much lessened gradually as the Atma proceeds, as illustrated in the figure, creating further reverse sanskaras as it goes. In short, for the creation of the reverse sanskaras that one needs for progress along the real path, only one remedy presents itself, and that is surrender to the Sadhguru. But these Sadhgurus are such misers, such Marvadis, that they do not give anything. They do not dispense any of their goods without receiving full payment first.
Marvadis are, they're from Gujarat, and they're famous as being extremely successful businessmen, but also they cheat you blind, or they strip, they, in their business dealings, they just strip everything away from you. So he's saying everybody in India would know what Marvadis are. So it's a kind of a funny comparison that Sadhgurus are Marvadis.
In this exchange, payment means love, and the goods given by the Sadhguru are God and the path of truth.
Thank you, Marian. Ward, why don't we have another reader and go with the slip of paper to finish up?
Yep.
We still have time, okay? All right, Diana. Diana Goodhart. Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta unmute you. Hold on. Go ahead, Diana.
So this is the editor's comment about this slip of paper.
As we saw earlier in the lecture of 10th December, see page 147, here again is a slip of paper. I don't know how to say what
You can just skip these references as a manuscript reference.
Here again is a slip of paper. Here again a slip of paper has been interleaved between two other manuscript pages. It contains 8 lines in Meher Baba's handwriting, written in pencil against the grain of the paper's own printed lines, which run vertically top to bottom. Since the content of Baba's text is plainly germane to this 11th December lecture, its essential substance has been incorporated into the text above, as explained in EndNote 7 on page 572. Probably it was by reason of this very relevance to this lecture that the Mandali caretaker of this slip of paper inserted it into this manuscript at this juncture, and that was by the editors.
The Mandali caretaker was very likely Chanji. So why don't we read the transcript first and then look at Baba's handwriting?
Okay, do you want me to continue?
Yeah.
Okay. Literally transcribed, the text reads thus. The Sadhguru does this by putting one on the reverse path, which produces reverse sanskars, and these reverse sanskars counterbalance the gross sanskars by and by, and finally leading one to God. Good dreams make you sleep comfortably. To make you awake, a tiger must come. When once awake, the tiger also disappears and you become awake.
So there it is. You want to read it again from here, just for the pleasure of reading Baba's own personal expression here.
Okay. The
Can you read it?
Sadhguru, I
Mm,
believe I can
yeah.
try. The Sadhguru does this by putting one in the reverse path, which produces reverse sanskars, and the reverse sanskars counterbalance the gross sanskars by and finally leading one to God. Good dreams make you sleep comfortably. To make you awake, a tiger must come. When once awake, the tiger also disappears and you become awake.
Awakes.
Awakes. Okay, so that's the end of that second lecture.
Excellent. Let me stop the recording and we will start a new one in a few minutes.